What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Victims and Villains channel. This is the channel where we talk about mental health through pop culture and introduce you to a couple cool flicks along the way. My name's Captain Nostalgia, and today we're talking about Motion Detected. This independent horror movie tells the story of a couple that moves from Mexico City to a suburban cul-de-sac in California, and husband has to go away to attend business, wife's left alone, and in the absence of her knight in shining armor, she is dealing with an artificial nightmare. Let me start off by saying I feel like this review is going to be one of the shortest that's ever been on this channel. Motion Detected feels a lot like the cinematic equivalency to whitewashed tombs. Basically, being really beautiful on the outside and on the inside just being empty and hollow. I couldn't find who did the cinematography for this movie on IMDb, so whoever you are attached to this, even if you are one of the two directors, who are Sam Roseme and Justin Gallaher, this movie looks absolutely stunning and incredible. I think this is one of those movies where you can definitely tell where the budget was put. It's put very smartly, not only into the way that this looks, but also this movie has a lot of CG effects to it. And I think all of these effects, especially for a low budget film, look absolutely exceptional. Typically, when you have a lower budget, sometimes the visual effects that you're starting to see on the screen are painfully noticeable, and you kind of just brush them off because you're like, yeah, it's the budget. That's not the case here. This movie actually looks crisp and clean and just looks like they were really wise with how they spent their money, and I really appreciate that. On the inside, however, I think that Motion Detected takes a concept that has been plaguing science fiction for the better part of 50 years, and there are other stories that do this concept so much better. So Katelyn MacMullen plays our main protagonist, Julie, who move into this new house. And MacMullen does an okay job. It's not quite the worst acting I've seen, definitely not the best acting I've ever seen. It's just kind of, she worked with the best what she got. I don't know if it's the script or I don't know if it's her, but she's just kind of mediocre. She's supposed to be playing a woman that is just absolutely petrified to be in this new house alone. And other reasons, I'll talk about that in a few seconds. And I just, the emotion of that fear and that terror just never resonated with me. Maybe others have seen this movie and think differently, but for me, like, just there was no elevation of emotion for her portrayal of this character. And this movie is like almost exclusively like riding on her back, because she's probably in, I would say, about 95% of this movie. There's like maybe a handful of like scenes here and there where you have like other people in the neighborhood, or her therapist, or what little we see of her husband, or the previous occupants of this home. And there's so much that's riding on MacMullen here, and she just never rises to that occasion. I talked earlier about how there are other films that take this very same concept and have done it better, but the other flip side of that is that because there are so many other films that have done concepts very similar to Motion Detected, this film is painfully predictable and just dreadfully dull because of its predictability. One of the other things that this film does that kind of differs it from other films that are like it is it introduces this subplot with MacMullen's character where she was essentially hunted by a character named Diablo, and also the AI security system also happens to be named Diablo. There could have been way better use of both elements of those stories. There's never a payoff to either one of those stories. The one physical person named Diablo that's been hunting MacMullen's character in this literally felt like it was given as an excuse simply to give her some sense of a background or trauma for story's sake, and just never really developed anything with it. That aspect of MacMullen's story really had an advantage over other films that are like this story, but again, it plays it safe, and instead just kind of goes with the tiresome science fiction tropes that we know from stories that are exactly like this. Let's run this through the Rorschach rating scale. Motion Detected is going to go ahead and get a 1 out of 5. This movie has, like I said, it has a lot of pretty things to offer its viewers, but literally no substance whatsoever. Motion Detected comes to VOD platforms beginning this Friday, May 19th, and wherever you guys rent your movies from. And now it's time to talk about mental health. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're talking about, talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. MacMullen's character Julie deals a lot with trauma and a kind of the recovery process that comes with going through something terrible. And while the film never alludes to it, I just want to use this as an opportunity to talk about the healing power of vulnerability. The film is never vulnerable with its audience. I think it serves as a warning sign to the troubling aftermath of what could happen if we're not vulnerable when it comes to the healing and recovery process following a traumatic event. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time kind of diving into the reasons as to why we did a podcast about it a couple years ago that I will provide links for in the descriptions below. And there you can also find links to our mental health resource library where you can start having those conversations right now. I can't stress enough about how important it is to have these conversations and to be vulnerable and make sure that they are being had on the regular. Trauma is not a once and done kind of thing. It is a conversation and a healing process that can take up to years and sometimes decades to unfold. I cannot stress how important the healing and the recovery process, and it starts with vulnerability at the forefront of that process to really allow the healing to begin. Once again, Motion Detected comes to all major VOD platforms this Friday, May 19th. Let us know in the comments below what your favorite AI type of movie is. Smart House, iRobot, 1984, all of them. Drop them in the show notes below. Have a great night and hit that subscribe button, and down there you can also find links to all of our social media and podcasts. We'll be back this weekend talking about Fast X and BlackBerry. Have a great night.